So today is finally bore sinking day. Excited for this. So let's go down, check out the truck. They've dropped the truck off and then we're going to be drilling this afternoon, which, bruh, super keen for. So I spoke about it in previous videos, but the reason we're putting down a bore is because I need some water to run this par 3 that I want to do on this place, possibly a par 4 in this paddock here in the future. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. Now we've got a dam, as I've said, in one of the other paddocks, but it's just not a big enough water source to cover this whole area. And the same thing, you've got to rely on rain, which we've had seasons of drought, we get no rain, and I'd have to dig out the dam, a little bit bigger, so that we could actually get some water out of it, so to use for the property. So these guys, CBJ Drilling, are going to be doing this for us today, so I'll come back to you guys once they turn up and show you how the process works. So once they get the drill rig level, it's time for them to start drilling the hole. So the drill head is like a hammer drill, which helps break through the soil and rock below the ground. You can see a big air compressor next to the rig, which is used with the drill rig to help break up the rock. There is steel shafts that thread together to help increase the drill depth. Each rig will vary obviously on length of the sizes of each of the shafts. Each rig's a little bit different, but they thread together, as you can see. It didn't take long for him to hit some rock. It was only a couple of meters down, and Brian from CBJ told me that we actually hit some andesite pretty much straight away, which is what we're drilling into this whole time. And you can see as soon as we hit that, dust is just coming up everywhere, which is the rock. So what we're looking for here is we're looking for fractures in the rock, which is where our water is going to come from. This is what Brian told me. So as you can see, when we're drilling through really, really hard rock, it's just like a constant noise. As soon as we hit any of those fractures, you can see here it actually starts to slow down a little bit and makes like sort of stop starts. That's what Brian was telling me when we're hitting fractures in the rock. Now, if you come over here and just have a quick look, every single meter that they drill, they actually pull out a sample of what they're drilling through the material. So this is all the andesite rock. So we basically had rock the whole time we were drilling. At the start here, you can see we had a little bit of soil, a bit of clay, and then it progressively gets worse and worse. At the start, there's a few fractures, as you can see. So there's some broken up rock there, and then we just start getting into more and more silty stuff along the way, which just means that it's solid rock. No fractures in it. Look at that, like that is ridiculous. So solid rock. So obviously the more solid the rock is, the slower the process is. As I said, we're looking for fractures along the way. So as you can see, we find a few fractures here and there, like there's little fractures just here where it's a little bit more stony and rocky, goes back silty. Another fracture there, nothing exciting too much yet. But you can see it was round about, Brian told me it was around about 38 to 40 meters that we hit some water. So you can see that is a good fracture just there, where it's quite broken up, and that's actually allowing some water to pass through the rock and through the ground, which is what we were aiming to get, which is awesome. So from here, they drilled a bit lower, they were going to sump it first there, but we drilled a bit lower. We hit some more water at about, I think it was 55 meters, Brian said. I'm not 100% sure exactly where it was along the way, because these samples are all wet now because we had rain. But you could see it on the day where the different bits of water came in. And then from there we sumped down to 62 meters, which is the total depth of the borehole. So as you can see also, as soon as we hit water, you can actually see that the dust stops, which makes sense. As soon as you hit water, all that dust is going to be stopped. Now, if obviously because we're out of town, that dust didn't really matter, but if you're in town drilling a bore, obviously that adds some water to it as well to actually prevent that dust flying into other properties and stuff like that. But the reason Brian didn't want to put any water down at the same time is because he was expecting a low flow rate. So with a low flow rate, if we let the dust go, we'd know straight away as soon as we hit some water. So that's the reasoning behind it. So to measure the flow, you see this little contraption just here, which is called a V-notch. So that's basically what they do is Brian measures it with a ruler, and depending on how many mil you get from the bottom of the V to where your flow rate is, or your water that's coming through is how much your flow rate's going to be. So Brian measured around, it was around 45 to 50 mil or 55 mil. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was fluctuating a bit here and there when we did the final test, which is about 500 gallons an hour. Could be a little bit higher because of those fluctuations. I won't really know until I get a submersible pump down the hole and I can actually check it properly 100%. But this is pretty accurate and gets you a very, very close reading to what you're gonna have when they use this V-notch thing. So once it's all drilled, we've sumped it down to 62 meters. From there, we need to put the casing in. So they've got some PVC casing, which is 100 mil in diameter. So that is also got slots in it. They cut some slots in it, so it basically lets the water filter through there and actually get into your hole so you can pump it out. Otherwise, if you had no slots in there, then you're going to prevent water getting into your PVC. And this is also cased all the way down as well, all the way down to the bottom of the hole. This is then filled, as you can see here, with gravel filter pack, which aids in the filtering of water into the slotted casing and keeps the casing firm in the event of ground movement, which makes sense. So if the ground moves, like we had, say, an earthquake, or over time, like the ground just shifts as it does when you get lots of rainfall, it would prevent, obviously, actually cracking the pipe. That's the reason they put that down there. And again, it also helps filter the water down there as well. Then lastly, they put in a Bentonite Seal, which is just required by Water New South Wales, which then just basically seals the hole. Huge shout out to Brian at CBJ Drilling. That guy honestly knows what he's talking about. Like, when he came to the property and I had a look at a couple of places, he said to me, all right, so there's one spot next to the dam over in the other paddock, but I reckon the best spot's gonna be here. And I'm gonna say you're probably gonna hit water at about 40 meters, and dead set, we hit water at, well, 38, 40 meters, so it was bang on the money. Just by looking at the lay of the land, he obviously does the research. He's serviced the Orange area for years and years, so he knows what he's talking about. No divining or anything involved like that. He just knows his stuff, knows how the rock formations work, and I don't 100% get it all. He's the dude that knows it all, and he's smart in that sense. But you can see here's the aftermath of it, where our hole was. So you can see all the rock that comes up, that it pulls out the drill rig. And then obviously here's our PVC popping out the top, just here. Now, something crazy about this borehole is it's actually got a positive head on it. So the water's actually coming up. So you think about it, that water we found was at about 40 meters, but it's actually pushing up through the top of the hole and leaking down here and leaking out continuously through there. It'd be awesome if the dam was just below it. You get a constant flow dripping in there. But mate, pretty crazy. You can see the water's nice and clear already. Yo. So as I said, about 500 gallons an hour is what we got, which is going to be pretty good for our property here. So I'm obviously not going to run irrigation straight off the pump out of the borehole. I'll probably put it into a feeder tank or something like that, or into the dam, pump from there to do our irrigation. But it's going to be plenty enough water to help top us up when we need it, when we're not getting rainfall, if we get into a drought, which we've had a few droughts over the last 20 years. So very, very possible. But 500 gallons an hour, which is about half a litre a second, which is more than we expected here, honestly. Brian was saying, because a lot of people have sunk bores around this area just here, even my brother-in-law, father-in-law, and my other brother-in-law, they all sunk bores across the road, and they only got about 90 to 100 gallons an hour. So we got a very good bore here, considering the whole situation. Even a few guys up the road as well have had really, really low flow rates. Now this is still a low flow rate, it's not super high, but it's enough for what we need to do, which is great. So I did get a few questions about pricing on Facebook and that. Now I'm not going to give you guys the exact pricing breakdown because it's not super fair on the company, because they could change their prices in a couple of years. It really depends on what sort of ground they need to drill through, the hours it takes them to do it, then if they have to steel case it or just use PVC. So there's lots of variations there, but it can be anywhere from 170 to 200 and something dollars per meter that you drill. If you have to get a Bentonite Seal, you then have to pay for that, which is going to be around two and a half to 3 grand, around about there somewhere. And then some people will charge an hourly rate as well, so it really depends. So the cost of this bore is probably going to cost me up around 15 to 20 grand for a 62 metre hole, which is what I was expecting. I was expecting more than that because we might have had to steel case it. So I'm really glad we didn't have to, because then that basically doubles the price for you. But mate, honestly, so good that we've got water now, so we can really start hooking to projects, start digging trenches, doing irrigation, putting pumps in. It's gonna be fun. Well, thanks guys so much for watching, really appreciate it. Make sure you guys check out CBJ Drilling, talk to Brian there if you guys live in the Orange area. And yeah, I'll see you guys soon for lots and lots of projects.